And it is a pleasure to welcome Sam Twiston-Davies to Luck on Sunday. Sam, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Well, nice you should be after yesterday. Al Dancer lived up to all the expectations in the Betfair Hurdle.
Yeah, well, we'd hoped obviously to go into Newbury, it would all go well, and sadly, obviously, everything that happened. But Ascot put it on swiftly, and always hoped that it wouldn't prove too many inconveniences swapping from Newbury to Ascot. And he got into a good rhythm. He was still plenty keen, so obviously to pick up like he did and put the race to bed, we were really happy with.
Yeah, I think when I spoke to you yesterday, I mean, watching him in the early part of the race, it seems that you were never able, for at least a few furlongs, to drop your hand on his withers, and he was always, you had your hands just a little bit, perhaps, suggesting he was a bit too keen. Yet to do what he did at the end of the race was hugely impressive.
Yeah, well, traditionally in a Betfair Hurdle, you go pretty hard all the way, so wanted to be somewhere in the first six, get him to relax, switch off, see how he went from there. But literally we jumped off, hacked along to the first, didn't really pick up too much more to the second. And as you know, with Ascot, then when you go down the hill, he just really started to get even more keen. I was thinking, this isn't ideal. I wish I was 4 places further back with a bit more cover, but luckily it's just the pure class of the horse has got him through it, and he's ended up winning nicely.
After the race, your dad was obviously effusive, and your brother suggested he might be he might be the best horse that you've ever had in your yard. In fairness, when your brother said that, your dad was standing next to me, and your dad actually said, Willie's been in the bar all day.
Well, we got there early. Willie works in the yard, helping out, and funny enough, we were leaving at 10 originally, and then it came back to 9:30, and then Willie was ready by 9:15, so we were out the yard pretty early. And then I didn't actually see Willie again till after the horse won, so it might have helped the fact so these bold statements were coming out. But no, Willie wears his heart in his sleeve. He loves obviously a lot of the horse in the yard. He works closely with Jack Savage, with Al Dancer. Massive credit to Jack, really.
And where does he rank? I mean, what in terms of excitement for the team? Because you've got some tremendous horses there. We think of Imperial Commander and the new one, etc.
He's a little bit different, this fella. He's very fast. Traditionally, we're obviously probably better known for kind of the Grand National types, the staying handicap chasers, the this and that. And this horse now, he can, what he does in a piece of work, not many you'd see at ours doing. So that's what's nice about him, is that you have to actually almost work him a little bit harder for his preps, because at the end of the day there's not many horses that you'd really work him with. That's why I think Jack does a great job with him, because you don't want to overwork him and because you get excited because he's faster than a lot of the others, but at the same time you want him to do a bit because he needs to be fit and ready to go in these big occasions.
Well, hearing what you're saying, it's extraordinary to think that the Ballymore might have been an option for him. Clearly, after yesterday, Ballymore's out of the picture and it's all the way to the Supreme. Well,
hopefully. I have to talk to Di. He's got, obviously, very lucky. He's got a handful of really good horses, and obviously with Angel's Breath as well. So I think between Dad, Di, Nicky, they'll have a chat, see which horses will be suited to which races, and with a bit of luck, we can end up in the Supreme. He just has a lot of natural pace. He's a strong traveller, a good jumper, so it'd be the obvious target. But say if for any reason Di wanted to, you just have to slot him back a little bit more, make sure he did relax, and see how he went from there. But I don't think the extra trip would be a problem, but he's just very fast, and I think to ride him in the Supreme would be be a good bit of sport.
And I know jockeys, trainers, owners, they always tend to look at the next race, but you know what we're like in racing, as a fan, as a member in the media or whatever, we're always thinking of the future, and immediately, and your dad mentioned it yesterday, perhaps a champion hurdle for this horse. Could he be that class?
One day, that'd be the dream. We always fall into that bracket, kind of is similar as when Ballyandy won the champion bumper. We said, oh, he owes us nothing now, and then he ended up winning the Betfair, and we were like, oh, he definitely owes us nothing now. But the trouble is then, because they've gone and done that, they've promised you so much, you're always hoping for that little bit more. So hopefully with this horse, it's today a fantastic day, but you're always hoping what could be in the future. And with the way he is, the way he's learning, and the pace he's kind of come forward, you never really know. We don't really know how much more's to come.
Indeed, the good horses seduce you like you can't imagine, and he has done that this season. So brilliant to see him do what he did yesterday, and it's brilliant to see you having a super season. Obviously, you took, I guess, probably would have been a difficult enough decision to go freelance. So how did you feel things have gone since?
Yeah, really happy. Obviously working really closely with Broady, so Chris Broad, who books all my rides, and does a fantastic job of managing me Mentally, sometimes can be a little bit. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. As Dad would say, I don't hold my temper so well. So he's done really, really well. We had the target at the start of the year of one thing I wanted to do was try and get to the 100 winners again, and touch wood, staying injury free, and the horses keep running like they are. Hopefully, we can do that. But
you're into the 80s now.
Yeah,
winners-wise.
80s. So we'll see how we go, and hopefully we can get there. But as always, it's working for Paul is like one of, as you see, like yesterday, it's like one of the best jobs. Well, is probably the best job in this country. Cause the volume of winners, the attention to detail, everything they do there is amazing. But at the same time, after however many years I was doing it, probably the last year I probably wasn't riding to the best of my ability. I was thinking about it a lot and second guessing every decision I made. And the one thing you're employed to do when you're a jockey is go out and ride on your instincts. And that's probably towards the end, I was going out and double thinking about everything I was doing. So actually to come back home and ride a lot for Dad and Dr. Newland is fantastic. Just to go out there and literally if something isn't working, you can go down through the options, plan A, B, C, even if you end up on plan E, and to come back and have them believing in you is what's nice. And now I think I'm riding better and learning more again. And end of the day, I probably have a better relationship with Paul now than I did in the best years we had together.
People often talk about the word pressure, and some say there isn't, some say there is plenty of pressure. Is that one of the things that you would say has been released by going freelance?
That's it. Well, in the early years at Paul's, I thrived off it, absolutely loved it, because I thought the more pressure I had on me, the better horses we had, the bigger races we had chances in. So it's one thing, I was always like, the more pressure I had, the kind of more we thrived off it. But then actually when Harry's obviously an exceptional jockey, as we've seen now, as he's come through, and he was always like behind me, and he was always putting pressure on along with Shawnee. So you're always upping your game more and more and more. And then it was the last year, then it's just, the pressure was kind of, you're sitting on your shoulders and you're thinking like, what can I do to have that little edge here or there? And at times, obviously, we got little things wrong, and it was the right time for obviously Harry to go into Paul's and me to do what I'm doing now. And I think it's nice that I don't go home and stress about it as much. There'd be some days I'd get home and sit in the car for 10 minutes and just didn't really want to go in, because no secret, I live with my mum and Willie, so I didn't really want to go in and them see me in the mood, so I could come in. So I'd sit in the car and then go upstairs, and now I'd be going home 80% of the time as a happy person and hopefully a not nicer person to deal with.
One thing you've always said is that no matter what situation's happening off the track, riding good horses and winning big races gives every jockey a huge buzz. And I imagine one of the best moments you would have had with Paul was when Dodging Bullets won the Queen Mother Champion Chase.
Yeah, that was all a dream, you know. Like to start, I remember Darryl sadly got injured the season before, and I'd ridden Dodging Bullets at Aintree in his last start the season before. So to see his progression from finishing midway in a novice chase around Aintree to where he ended up, placing the Shular, winning Tingle Creek, to going and winning this was just exceptional. And in that year, he was the ultimate. He was so quick from A to B. He just had it all, and speed. He could jump, travel, do everything he needed to do in those big races. And just the thrill I got off riding him was exceptional. And it was just in that time where Paul and I needed a good one together, and he turned up and did everything that I'd only dreamed about as a kid, really.
You're still a very young man, but I guess experiences like winning on a horse like Dodging Bullets so early in your relationship with Paul, and given how things have sort of panned out, makes you think when you have those great days, better embrace it and celebrate it. No one knows what's around the corner.
Yeah, well, that's it. When I was younger, I didn't know how to celebrate it. I didn't know. Well, I just presumed it was just going to happen all the time. So that is the biggest trouble. Was talking to Tommy Skoo. Trouble is we were so spoilt as when we were young, riding these amazing horses, and then you're always trying to find more and more and more. And Cheltenham is an incredibly hard place to win. So to have ridden the likes of Dodging Bullets and the new one at an early stage, even Baby Run in one of my first Cheltenhams, to go and win the Fox Hunters, just presumed like Cheltenham was quite straightforward. So it's not until you've had a couple of years where you're finishing mid-div to back that you're like, well, do you know, I realised like I should have maybe taken that all in and enjoyed it a little bit more. The only trouble is our skybox at home is ancient because we refused to delete any of the replays, so probably enjoy them more now than I ever did on the day.
You're going to have to find a way of downloading them.
Yeah.
I'm not clever enough to think of it. So there might be somebody here who might be able to help you. Obviously, talking of Cheltenham and a horse that early on won for you at the festival, the new one, Is it possible to describe just how much you love that horse?
Not really in words. He's still at home. He lives across from Dad's house. He's having that rebuilt, so he used to look out his bedroom window and look down on him. But to try and sum him up it's just so tricky, because what he did for us as a family, and whenever you were lacking a horse that maybe you needed to keep you in the picture, like the new one was just always there. You'd go to a haydock maybe after a couple of quiet weeks and he'd win the Champion Hurdle Trial.
His race now.
Yeah, exactly. And he'd go to the Cleve, not the Cleve Hurdle, he'd go for the International to win it as many times as he did. It was just exceptional. And that horse, just I promise you wouldn't have noticed him in the morning. He was quiet. Wayne Jones literally rode him from day one, probably because he was one of the quiet ones and told everyone that he wasn't. But no, he just done wonders for us as a family, and we owe him so much now for keeping us in the limelight. When Imperial Commander left, there was obviously big question marks about what horse was going to keep us in the big picture, and he was the one that jumped into that and did and some more.
Yeah, but the thing I loved about the new one was that there were times when he was absolutely brilliant, just in terms of his raw ability as a racehorse, but there were also times when he had to get down and dirty, and he didn't mind that either.
Oh, he could do it every way. That was the best thing about him, I'd say, because he could win ugly, he could win pretty. I think the biggest one for us was that Champion Hurdle, his first one. It was a day that
there are
never
groans
forget.
in my ear from people that still can't believe he didn't win that day.
Oh, don't. That was not one of the toughest days racing, because that's very unfair. Because still, it was a hell of a day. It was a hell of a run, and to have a horse placed in the Champion Hurdle is still very, very lucky. But at the same time, you always hope for different scenarios. And as a jockey, you run these races through your head hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's the one thing I couldn't have ever thought of happening. So that was probably the hardest thing. It's just the one scenario I hadn't prepared myself for. So it was obviously, that was what the hardest thing was. There wasn't too many words said afterward. That was for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how did you and your dad, because normally you're all very good with each other, it seems when we watch it, you're all pretty good dealing with each other and disappointments and real about stuff. So how did that post-race analysis go?
Yes, obviously Nigel and I have a funny relationship. There's strong words exchanged on many occasions, but on that occasion it was more, there was very, very few words exchanged. I think there's 2 times he got too emotional on a race course. One was Hello Bud, when he won his second beacher at 14, and that day I just was stuck for words, couldn't say anything, couldn't think. It's just amazing how wrapped up you can get in it all, and that day was a hard one, but at the same time we were very lucky to still have the horse and for him to come out and done what he's done since.
Yeah. The thing, watching you over the years, Sam, I remember coming down to the yard when you guys had Fundamentalist. I think either you or Willie had the colours on of Fundamentalist and walked around everywhere in the yard and just loved this. There's a strong family bond between you all. Did you find that when you were at Paul's, the way that everything was done was also a similar sort of way, or was it very different?
The funny thing was, in my first year of being at Paul's, I used to come back and tell Dad he was doing it all wrong, so that never really used to go down well. And then our schooling changed dramatically all of a sudden, and back at home, and not so much. We were doing more and more in the school, because I was amazed by what they did with the young horses early days, and now obviously nothing's ever changed, and I should never allow it, but we're in the school a lot more, and when the grass isn't able to use. But the one thing you took from Paul's, you go home and you'd be like, the amount of schooling those horses do was just like, it was amazing to see, and to sit on all those horses. So I was coming back home and be like, we need to school more, we need to do this. And as you can imagine, got the standard, well, I'm not saying it, but the standard told where to go, I should say.
You're obviously running a lot for your dad, but also for Richard Newland this year. How's that going, and what's he like to ride for?
Amazing man. Obviously understands racing very well. He's when you ride for a trainer, so I was lucky growing up riding for Dad, and Dad would always form his own opinion on a race by watching it, seeing, knowing. And Dr. Newland's amazing because you ride for him, and he likes to know obviously as much as in detail about the race afterwards. But then the one thing he does is he listens to every word, and then he'll go forward, and if you've said 2.5, next time you can be nearly sure it will always be running over what you've suggested. And that's why his attention to detail is fantastic. His planning for the horses is amazing. Like literally they go through however many races to try and find the most suitable race. And I think that's why he operates at the strike rate he does, is because the attention to detail is just so good.
Yeah, the thing, obviously you went and paid the same attention to it, because from a punter's point of view, whenever you see a Richard Newland horse being backed, for example, it generally runs a very, very good race. Think about Cad de Laune winning at Ascot in November last year. And all the way through the race, you're getting there. And it seems like his horses are always prepared for a specific target, if that's fair.
Yeah, well, that's it. The one thing when you ride his horses, you know, they're very fit, they're well schooled. So going out from a jockey's point of view, it's very straightforward. I remember that day very well of Cad de Laune, because obviously didn't really realise how much the race was worth.
Yeah.
And we're in the paddock with all the owners, and Dr. Newland said, look, they're going to go very fast. Don't be afraid to just kind of sit on him and see where you end up. So ended up mid to back and got into a good rhythm, and one by one they started stopping, and got a nice slip round the inside turning in and winged 2 out, and I was thinking, oh, happy days, run a blinder.
Yeah.
And then obviously to see Spedredet coming back, all of a sudden you're thinking, here we go. And it was just a very exciting day. The horse had previously pulled up around Cheltenham a couple of starts before, and to see the progression he'd made from that day in Cheltenham to win that race around Ascot was just why Dr. Newland is such a fantastic trainer.
How many horses does he have at the moment?
I think he operates at around 18.
And he doesn't want any more than that, does he?
He bought a new yard. He's expanding.
Oh, has he? Right, okay.
So with a bit of luck, and from my point of view, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that with those 18, and obviously when maybe one goes wrong, and Dr. Newland will say if I'm wrong, but then something will take its place.
Yeah.
If something's sick, then they'll swap them around, and that's why it works so well. They'll kind of have 18 horses going forward and running, and that's what the placing of them is so good, and that's why the attention to detail for each individual horse that you might not get so much in a big yard is very, very good.
Well, what I say about his strike rate, I think he's had 50 winners this season from a very small number of horses at a strike rate of around 30%. And it's quite incredible.
It is amazing.
Think about it.
It's a great team there, from Carolyn, who does the travelling, to Rod Trow, who's Dr. Newland's assistant, to Charlie Hammond plays a huge part in that he's there every day, helps do the gallops, and obviously him and Rod talk through the board with Dr. Newland, so attention to detail is fantastic. You know that all the horses have done loads and loads of schooling, and I'm in there a day a week, and we'll always do plenty of jumping, and then the work days, you know exactly what's going on, and they're a big believer in equinety, so it's the girth sleeves to monitor kind of recovery rate and all of that's relatively new, so that's just one of the many reasons why attention to detail is so good.
Yeah. Well, you've spoken about so many positive things since you've gone freelance. I guess if we were to highlight something that must be fairly tricky for you, is watching a day like yesterday and seeing Paul having winners all around the country, and obviously Harry's the main man there now. Is that something that you've eased off with now, or do you look at it going, oh, that could have been me?
Yeah, the hardest thing to accept early season was to accept it wasn't my job anymore. Once I'd accepted that, it got easier. By no means will it ever be like totally, you won't ever sit there smiling, because at the end of the day, I've ridden those horses before. I've sat on Surname, ridden Clanders Oboe, and that's what's amazing about Paul, is that like the progression from season to season these horses can make is just like Surname, for example, yesterday, like pulled out that performance, and I'd seen him, watched him. I just thought, I don't mean this any disrespect to Surname, I thought he'd give us a nice lead till turning in, and then he's gone and literally blown us all away, and that's just why Paul Nicholls is obviously very good at his job. But back to what you asked, it was early on this season was tough, because you felt in your head you should still be riding them, and you wanted to be riding them all, because the talent down there is still going in and seeing them all and sitting on them, and felt like I couldn't really accept that it wasn't actually my job anymore was the hardest bit. But then when it kind of slowly started to sink in, like it's not yours to be upset about. At the end of the day, you've got to try and make the best of the situation, still go in there, sit on these horses, because still have a good relationship with Paul, Harry, and a lot of the owners. So in the end, just kind of accepted it, moved forward, and now I think as a person, I'm a lot happier in that. In myself, I go home, I'm probably better to deal with. I'm a nicer person, probably actually a little bit more social. 'Cause when I was riding for Paul, I'd literally go home and sit down and watch the replays and go to bed and do it all over again and again, and wasn't spending a lot of time with my friends. And at the end of the day, now I'm obviously a lot probably more approachable than I might have been at some times.
Well, a very, very long time ago, when I was playing some sport, someone told me that sport in general is 90% confidence, 10% ability, because it's all about confidence. And watching you now and watching you last few years, it seems that you're much stronger mentally. Your riding has always been excellent. But would it be fair to say that your mind is now much more at ease, and that's the area that's strengthened up in the last 12 months?
Well, the one thing is that I dealt with, obviously, when Big Bucks got beat, for example. I'll never forget that night. It was crazy. My phone, the tweets, everything, the social media just lit up, and that was a big learning step from day one, and I got that quite an early stage. So dealing with disappointment was something that I've got to deal with quite quick, and dealing with obviously patrols and such, it ended up learning to deal with quite quickly. So now, yeah, probably a more complete person, and I'm more confident. Well, I wouldn't say I'm confident, say I play with my hands fidgeting, but that's just what these red lights do to you.
You might be shy,
yeah.
At least in this sort of arena.
But literally put me on a race course on the back of a horse now, and I generally believe in what I can do, and I feel when I get on and off a horse, I can give the appropriate feedback and go out there and give the horse every chance.
Yeah, and the people around you feel also benefit from that?
Hopefully. I have a great relationship with my dad and Willie, Carl, Jim Old at home, and then I know full well when Dr. Newland, there was an example of a horse competition at Huntingdon, and the plan was to drop it in. There was no pace, so I popped it out, and it went drastically wrong. And Dr. Newland, first thing I said was, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. And he said, no, I've never had a problem with changing tactics or enterprising tactics. And from that day on, it was like, just go out and do what you do, and sometimes we get it wrong, sometimes we get it right, and that's the biggest confidence, is when your trainers believe in you, and you know going forward, if you do something wrong, then it's not the end of the world, there's another day. That is the biggest confidence booster in its own right.
Seems nowadays that everybody loves you, Sam. Even Paddy Brennan yesterday was tweeting about your wonderful skills as a horseman, putting yourself first. You were riding Daydream Ulm here. Just tell us what happened.
Yeah, he was going okay at the time. Obviously, he just clipped the top. He's fallen, so jumped up and caught him as anyone would have done the same, you know. End of the day, I was worried for the horse, so just wanted to make sure we caught him and make sure the vets could see him as quick as possible. I know you say anyone would have done it. I mean, it's hard for us who haven't ridden horses like that to try and understand it. But is it a natural instinct? Yeah, literally naturally. Kind of first and foremost, you kind of look to see where the horse is, and then the horse is in and around you. So when I saw it was relatively clear, I could jump up and get him. First and foremost, because you'd never like to see anything like that happen, and can report back the horse is all okay, which amazed me because I'd never seen anything like it. They said he was concussed originally, so he jumped back up, walked up the track, and all was okay. This
is what Paddy said about you. One thing stood out on a Great Day's Racing. Sam Twiston-Davies' reaction after his fall in the 4:30 at Ascot was unbelievable horsemanship. Put the horse first and could have saved his life. It's quite nice to read something like that. For
Paddy's obviously one of the senior jockeys, and I remember we were actually laughing about it the other day. Paddy, when he first came to Dad's, took Willie and I out for tea with Dad, and there was days we go racing together, like be me, Paddy, Dad and Willie. Remember the King George one year, he come Imperial Commander and there's no parking spaces left, and Nigel threatened to park in the disabled, and Paddy had no chance it was ever happening. And that was like, me and Willie were sat in the back laughing, because obviously there's the only space left, we were King George, so anyway we had to go and park miles away, and Nigel was not happy.
Gosh, you all have to learn to deal with Nigel, right?
That's it.
Oh, by the way, what happened to Nigel's duffel coat? That was a big thing.
He bought a sharp new one from M&S.
I don't know what happened now.
Yeah, well, I guess Willie had told him he needed to up his game, but he needs to get the initials and that put on the new one. But I don't know, the duffel coat's still going. He still wears his other one every morning if it's cold. And I'm sure it will be making an appearance again soon. That's his new favourite, M&S. He swears it was only 60 quid. I don't really believe it.
We're not far away, obviously, Sam, from the Cheltenham Festival. Al Dancer stands out as a horse that you must be buzzing about riding there. What else do you think you might be sitting on that will give you a buzz?
Tricky question. Probably more handicaps than anything. End of the day, when you leave a job like Paul's, it's you're playing obviously different kettle of fish again. Broady does a fantastic job in working out where we should be and where we should be riding out. So we have a good basis of where to be. But obviously the rides itself is what do become very tricky, because you've got the best of the best at Cheltenham, best horses, best jockeys, so the spares become incredibly hard to find. So obviously with our dancers, the main hope, going there, and then we're playing a big field in some of the handicaps, but it's always tough. Like Cap Poley, for example, would have been going for the Fred Winter, but he was disappointing yesterday. I'd really fancied his chances for that. So obviously we have to get him home, assess him, and try and work out what went wrong yesterday. And even then, on some of his early form, you'd have said a Fred Winter would have been a very realistic target. So he was originally one I was really looking forward to, and then so you've got the likes of Ballyhill and such could go back into the handicaps. He looks quite high. Creve Hill is similar boat. He could go into the handicaps. He's a strong traveller, good jumper, but it's incredibly tough to go to Cheltenham. That's the thing. When I was young, I was spoilt to be going and riding and putty sons, Ballyandies and champion bumpers, and to have that like volume of depth of rides. I'll be going this year, and if I'm 1 or 2 rides a day, I'll be happy, because that's just how hard it is to get rides there.
Well, you're going to find out very early on how your 2019 Cheltenham Festival is going. Race 1, the Supreme. Fingers crossed though, Sam. It's been a real joy chatting to you. We're going to take a break here on Luck on Sunday. Sam's sticking around, because when we come back, we'll be reflecting on yesterday at Ascot.